about consciousness, so I jotted down these names, these words. Edgar Casey, Nostradamus, global warming, Mayan prophecy, apocalypse, space and time, December 21st, 2012, 11/11. And at the very end, my consciousness went dreaming. Somewhere in the middle, I talked about the heart. Pondering everything, your heart begins to swing back towards remembering who you are.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, the veil is being lifted, and supposedly the myths say that this happens every time, every 13,000 years. So this is the time when we learn everything. I don't know if it's a short time and then we start forgetting it again or whatever, but this is that time.
And the stars align, all of the sublime thoughts and subconsciousness become one mind. Tap into the universal mind and see everything wide. It's bigger than you ever thought it could. Pondering everything your heart begins to swing back towards remembering who you are. And the sweat on your brow is rolling, exposing just where it ends. We are right now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live broadcast from the Prophetico and the Bands of Time. Hello,
Hello,
Matthew.
everybody. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that hesitation there, Bri. A little bit of an update. The inner circle already knows it. Today, right before supper, me and my boys were putting up this paneling, actually, that I just have setting up here. We're putting it in the laundry room, converting the laundry room to the back porch to a laundry room. Sorry, you'll find I'm a little bit discombobulated because I don't take painkillers. Don't do that. But tonight, I was cutting a piece of paneling, and it fell off the sawhorse. When it did, I put my hand was probably a foot back from it, but as it came off, the blade got caught between the two pieces of wood and kicked back, and completely severed the tendon by which that I extend my middle finger. Completely severed it. So the hospital here does not do that. So the hospital that does is supposed to call us in the morning and schedule a surgery to put my hand back together. So without medication, of course, I got the nurse's attention. I don't do dope. Never have done dope. Ain't gonna happen. So anyway, we're going to do this. I just wanted everybody to know what happened. Like I said, the inner circle already knows. So that's an update. Looks like I'll be out of commission for a while, but I shared some things with the inner circle. I'm not going to share with anybody else. Make no mistakes about it. Just another instance where God steps into my life. This past week, everybody knows that I was going out of state, and the driving conditions were not lawful. The gentleman that I was riding with, both of them, they would buy a case, and they would down it before we got here. So, of course, in that 2 hour time, they were well hammered. I, of course, implored them to let me drive, but they were on this kick that, marijuana should be illegal or should be legal, drinking should be legal. Uh, so they think it's morally wrong that it's illegal, and that just fueled the fire. And they would just sit up there in the front seat. I was right in the back, and they would just slam them, trying to outdo each other. But anyway, um, God said no to that. So I'm not going to be doing that this week. Obviously, I'll be getting surgery tomorrow. But hey, um, I'm just a carpenter, electrician, plumber, heating and cooling, roofing, siding, interior trim, stair guy on the side. What I do is biblify the bride. That's what I do. So we'll appreciate your prayers, especially tonight. It's going to be a very long night, trying to go to sleep with a severed tendon in my hand. And, of course, a great big gaping hole. I took out a rather large chunk of bone out of the middle knuckle. So it's tore up. Well, it's tore up. I ran a skill saw into it. So, anyway, just to take note, I am faithful. I had my two boys put the board back up on the sawhorse, and I finished the cut. And by the time I was home from the hospital, they had the paneling up. So I stayed my course, just like the Lord my God, until the job was finished. So good deal. Hey, tonight we're going to finish what we started. I raised quite a few eyebrows. The Brian and I did last night's broadcast, talking about the great river Euphrates. Now everybody knows this from secular authors. We can go through the spiel again. Graham Hancock, Andrew Collins, of course, Robert Bouval. He's talked about these things before, that every country, of course, the great river running through them, that's what they called whenever they referred to that as the great, whether it be the great Euphrates or the great Nile. That, of course, meant the Milky Way. And they would position their villages and their cities according to the stars along the Milky Way. So, seeing how we introduced the four elementals yesterday, we need to go ahead and finish that portion of the timeline there as it progresses through Revelation chapter 16. Now, let's all take a great pause, shall we? Prophetically speaking, right now, during the 1,290 days, you are in Egypt. Okay, the Bible says that very clearly, that we are in Egypt prophetically. We are slaves. If you don't know that, I don't know how I can help you in that, in coming to that realization. If you don't understand the banking system, if you don't understand the pyramid scheme, there's just tons of people that do that in the Christian fringe community. Just go hook up with them and they can explain it to you in depthly how we are in fact slaves. Take note here, this is not actually my property. It will never be my property. If I do not pay the taxes on it every year, they take it. It's not mine. If you have to pay somebody on a cyclical basis for anything that you own, it's not yours. It's never yours. Anyway, you have to understand that once the beast comes down, or I'm sorry, I misquoted myself. Like I said, I'm in a great deal of pain. Once Satan comes down and he tries to go back up Jacob's ladder, there's war. He cannot go back up Jacob's ladder, and he is replaced by the 144,000 of the primus numerus, the 144,000 that are 2 years and under. At that time, once the beast is unleashed from the abyss, Satan hands him over the authority, the deed, the title to the planet. At that time, Babylon is set up. So in the scripture, that's why you see before it tells you that, of course, prophetically, you're in Egypt and in Sodom. Why does he say that? Of course, we've done tons of broadcasts in the past. My son did an absolutely wonderful study on the Vale of Siddim. I suggest you take a look at it and what actually happened there with the Battle of the 10 Kings. And the Septuagint is quite clear. That's where the Dead Sea comes from. God filled it up with the most saltiest water on the planet. You can actually float on top of the water. Anyway, after Satan hands his authority over to the beast, after that time, it will be referred to as Babylon. Okay, so right now, while we are underneath the pyramid scheme, it is called Egypt, the whole planet. We're in slavery. Then, of course, we have the falling of the angels. They get stuck down here. We need to be referred to as Sodom or Gomorrah. He needs to put that in there for us. He, of course, does because he's faithful. So now, by the time we're past this into the 1,260 days, where the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, said that we had gone into our inside and closed the doors behind us. That's a direct reference to the tabernacle of David inside the place that he has prepared for us. So during that time, the beast has been given his authority. So therefore, this entire planet is referred to as Babylon. In doing so, when he makes reference to the Milky Way, he will say, the great Euphrates. Now, take note, the Greek never says Euphrates. It says that it puts it in a very, very particular way. You have to take note that literally what he says there in the Adito Regia is ton megon ton Euphraten. That's what he says. It doesn't say Euphrates. It says Euphraten. He says the great, mega Euphrates in our tongue. So that's what he says there. When he does that, he's letting you know that this is the kingdom of the beast. It is referred to as Babylon. Therefore, when he makes reference to the Milky Way, he's going to call it the great river Euphrates. And I pointed out, I gave you the Strong's number so you could look at it. But you need to realize he doesn't say Euphrates. He doesn't give it its proper name. Its proper name is Euphrates in our tongue. That's not what he says. He says Euphraton, referring to something else altogether. So with that in mind, we need to be looking for something that he's going to do in the heavenlies. We know that the beast, of course, is an angel. It's not a man. There are no men in the abyss. So once he comes out, he strikes his kingdom. And remember, we always follow suit. As above, so below. So you're going to have these in sequence. He's going to strike the pyramid scheme or the Leviathan. That's why we didn't get a chance to cover it. But of course, if we would have continued on last night to Isaiah chapter 27, what's it about? It's about, of course, the Leviathan. What is a Leviathan? It is a coalition of angelic entities that combine their power so they can create an empire. That's what a Leviathan is. So that's why Isaiah chapter 27 explains to you in great detail, just like the book of Revelation does with this new beast that is different from the others, of course. That's the exact same thing that Isaiah chapter 27 is describing, only it calls it by its heavenly name, a Leviathan. So that's why most people, when you ask them, they of course get very confused. They have no idea what God's talking about. Of course, if you go on the internet, uh, even time is so conjoined. They don't even know when this is going to happen. Some people think that this is actually the seals and the trumpets and the bowls all happen at the exact same time. That they're just so confused. Uh, Look, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to put it to you like this, but this bears testament against them. Okay, because we have a promise. Our promise is toward the bridal procession that the Holy Spirit will be given unto you, and you will know the explicit purposes of that is that you will know what is to come. So if you can't put everything on a timeline, if you're confused even about when things are at, you need to take a deep breath. And I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to insult you. All I am saying is that that's not lawful for you to be confused about the Word of God. And most people don't even know which manuscripts to use. They have no idea. They do not even have the credentials to look into the original manuscripts to figure out which one's which. That's why Brian and I have freely given it to you. We've found great links on the websites to make sure that you can install the software. Oh my goodness, I'm in pain. I have done everything that that I can do to put the Bible source code in your hand. So please understand that I love you with all my heart. I love Robert Bouval with all my heart. Certainly, Dr. Paul LaViolette. But please try to understand this. The only way that we can have any hope of winning them over, from snatching them from the fire, is to know what is to come. Is to know not only where we have been and where we are, but where we're going. The only way you can do that is with the Bible source code. You have to at least have a firm foundation of what you're talking about. And I'm not trying to slam the different translations. I do slam the paraphrases, completely throw them out. But you need to at least work with a translation. But please know, the translations that the Brian I use here are completely illegal. The New American Standard Bible, it doesn't use the Edito Regia or the Septuagint. It doesn't keep its, the flow. It puts in all kinds of note where this manuscript says that and this manuscript says that. But the English Standard Version does the same thing. The King James Version does the same thing. They're not based on any manuscripts. The only New Testament you can actually get that's based on a single manuscript is the Edito Regia. That is the Geneva Bible. But the Geneva Bible does not apply because, it does use the Edito Regia for the New Testament, but it uses the Masoretic in the Old, so you get half and half. We go to great lengths to make sure that you know what is to come. We are trying to fulfill the promise to the Technon Epigalia that she would know what is to come. So that's why we, do everything that we do. I mean, there's nothing else more important to me that I be able to see your face at the Tabernacle of David. And, ladies and gentlemen, that might not be my portion. It might not be Brian's portion. I mean, when the rubber hits the road, who would have the authority and the audacity, to walk straight up to the fallen and say, you're pathetic. No, you're not going to kill me. Take me to your king. I want to see the beast face to face, and I'm going to tell him that he is not the Lord my God. He is nothing. That's what he is. Who else do you know would do that? So I don't know. Perhaps I'm not going to see you at the Tabernacle of David, and if not, make no mistakes about it. During your honeymoon, during those 1,000 years, you'll have the big guns backing you up. Won't nobody mess with the bride. So it is my hope that everything, this exhaustive effort that the Brian and I do, it is our hope that we get the reward of seeing your face at the Tabernacle of David, preparing you for when time goes topsy-turvy, your 10 days of testing, it's coming. So in order to facilitate this, the Brian and I just can't mention something and just let it go. We have to keep progressing so that you'll be able to wrap your mind around. So when you just open up your Bible and just read Revelation chapter 16, you're actually going to know when, where, what, why. You're going to know everything. Who, what, where, when, why. I think is how they did it in elementary school. You're going to know the whole thing. You're going to understand it. And in being able to understand it, you'll know, hey, we got a little while to do this. There's things that's going to be very frightening here for a little while, but it's just going to be a little while. So let me get to Brian here. I've been rambling on, probably because of I'm very uncomfortable. I do have a pillow here. I am setting my hand on, and of course it's in a stent or whatever they call that stupid thing, and then they wrapped it up, of course, because it was gushing blood, as you can see. But I'm sorry about that, but it needs to be done. So should you understand why the Brian and I are doing what we do? We're not just going to mention something and let it go. So Brian, why don't you jump in here, buddy, and let me get some of my coffee. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't drink anything else but coffee. I think my wife has me clocked at 3 and sometimes 4 pots of coffee a day. So anyway, let's do this thing, Bri. Go ahead and take over for a sec.
Well, hello everybody. Kind of another one of these impromptu live streams again. Oh boy, it's been quite a week, quite a weekend. As Matthew definitely pointed out, there's definitely been some events transpiring around all of us here, but that's just kind of life. That's the way things go. It strengthens us. It makes us stronger in the end. Everything happens for its purpose. Let's see here. You know, while Matthew is up getting his coffee, we had discussed something on, oh, what night was that now? Friday night. It's been one long weekend, everybody. Double check to make sure I have the proper web page up before I bring this in. We had discussed some things concerning the Sabians of Yemen and Sheba, and we never really quite got where we were planning to go here with this. Now, I do want to point out as well that last night, or actually it was yesterday, ISIS took out a governor inside of Yemen. So, you know, some pretty big events still transpiring here. And, you know, we've tried to talk about this a little bit on the podcast. I'm not altogether certain if we have alluded to this on air or not, but something that the Western media has not really made known is the very fact that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have definitely made some alliances, and a very large number of varied portions within Al-Qaeda have sworn allegiances to al-Baghdadi, which is the leader of ISIS, the guy that appointed himself the caliphate. So, you know, when you see ISIS taking out the governor in Yemen, this becomes pretty important because of the fact that there has been so much going on some of the preliminary strikes when the Al Qaeda were trying to, slowly kind of slide towards the caliphate. There's been a lot of wars that have been breaking out in Yemen. We've seen there's been a lot of drone strikes through the United States. There's just been all kinds of major events that have been transpiring in there for quite some time. And, as we've discussed in the past, it's very important to keep an eye on Yemen, especially considering Marib, where we also have the water, the waters of Meribah, as it's spoken of in the Bible. It's the same root word, Meribah, is Marib. But nonetheless, this is where the Queen of the South originates from. And we are told specifically that Nineveh will rise up in judgment, and then we are told next that the Queen of the South will rise up in judgment. So we are specifically being told that we need to keep a close eye on both of these places. And it's just there's so many things that are happening, and throughout the entirety of the world at this point in time, it's really hard to keep track of. And I see we've got good old Johnny's here in the room. And, I kind of wanted to bring something up here because it kind of was a little shocking after I had thought back on it the other night. Johnny kind of closed out the show, giving some, patting on the back and so forth. And he made a comment that took me a little bit off guard. But nonetheless, here's where things get disturbing. On air, we had discussed what had happened here in California. And, the events with the shooting that just had happened. And, at that point in time while we were doing that live broadcast with Johnny, the previous night I maybe looked at that story for 15 seconds. And what I stated on that program that night is I said my initial thought, due to the fact that from what happened with the ISIS attack in France, which was all orchestrated by native French people who had made alliances with ISIS as well, and orchestrated that attack. I had stated that was my very first suspicion when I saw the article. Well, lo and behold, later that night, released through Reuters and a multitude of other news sources, it was revealed that high-level government officials here in the United States had tracked that he did pledge allegiance to al-Baghdadi of ISIS. So, when things like that happen, and they seem to happen on a continual basis, it does get to the point where you start scratching your head. I had no idea that any of that went down. From what we understand, there were no orders given to orchestrate the attack that the government has knowledge of. I know that there was a presidential debate that was on earlier tonight, and go back to my camera here. I'm sitting here talking and doing all this stuff to a screen, and you guys are looking at a story we're not even covering yet. But nonetheless, the president had stated that, there was a few little odds and ends because she kept flipping the channel. And it was brought up multiple times that, well, we don't see that this attack was completely locked into ISIS, and that's the little bits that I hear. Then she'd flip it back, waiting for a TV show. I'd hear another thing, so I don't altogether know what's going on as far as what that presidential address was addressing. What I do know is that they are about to send in, the United States has pledged, I believe it's in somewhere, I don't remember the exact number, it's a fair, decent-sized special forces group that's going to be sent in there. So there's definitely things really, moving along here. But with that in mind, let me get back over here to cover this, just cover this story real quick so people are kind of, I felt bad about not bringing this up the other night, and I realized it once we looked back. This was released December 1st of 2015. Huge geometric shapes in Middle East may be prehistoric. This specific photo itself that I'm going to just focus there on for a moment. This was over the top of Jordan. which again, that just begins to really kind of ratchet things up as well. But as you go on to look at the rest of this article, it states here thousands of stone structures that form geometric patterns in the Middle East are coming into clear view, with archaeologists finding two wheel-shaped patterns that date back some 8,500 years that makes these wheels older than the famous geoglyphs in Peru called the Nazca lines. Some of these giant designs located in Jordan's Azraq oasis seem to have an astronomical significance, but align with the sunrise on the winter solstice, are built to align with the sunrise on the winter solstice. Those are just some of the findings of new research on the Middle East lines, which were first encountered by pilots during World War I. And, I'll just skip ahead here. I'll just, I'm essentially going to link this in. There is, we've got mention of, you can see my cursor right here. So they occur throughout the entire Arabian region from Syria across Jordan and Saudi Arabia to Yemen, wrote the researchers. The most startling thing about the works is that they are difficult to identify from the ground. This stands in contrast to their apparent visibility from the air. New research of the Middle East lines was published recently in the Journal of Archaeological Science and the Journal Arabian Archaeology and Epigraphy. If people don't know what epigraphy is, it's essentially the study of languages. Okay, Live Science also got an advanced. I'll go back. It's the study of languages that are engraved into various odds and ends. That's a more specific description. Okay, back to where we were. Live Science also got an advanced copy of an article set to be published in the Journal of Antiquity. We go on here to discuss the dating and so forth. And this becomes very important as far as looking at some of the movements of the people, especially those that had settled within Yemen. That we would refer to as Sheba or Saba, which in turn is the biblical Sabians that show up in the book of Job. One major thing about that culture is they were master astronomers. They were basically involved in what they refer to as a star cult, which broken down essentially means, well, they were astronomers. They worshiped the heavens and so forth. That's, sort of a brief description of it. So when when releases like this come forward, I kind of, I have to look at this in amazement, and at the same time, with all the study and research I've done into these realms, I can't say that I'm altogether surprised. So this is it's pretty interesting little release here in the last week, now that it's come out of Live Science. So I will switch back over to you, Matthew. Your picture is showing up a little discombobulated here again. Matthew, are you muted?
I am muted.
That's classic, man.
That is classic. You got the video, not the audio. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of discombobulated tonight. You mentioned Johnny was in the chat, and I didn't know there was a chat on YouTube. You didn't tell me that, so
I had altogether forgotten about it, and sometimes I turn it off, but I guess it's just best I left it on tonight.
I'll
have to leave it on from now on out.
Yeah, just leave it on. But I'm glad we got back to that, because we've been mentioning so many things. Throwing out some tidbits or referencing things. It's good that we remember to go back to that article and those lines. Extremely interesting, indeed, extremely interesting. So you're still having my fuzzy picture problem, huh?
Yeah, it's still doing that, which I don't know what's going on. We're still gonna have to sort something out here and figure out what's going on with that.
Well, maybe it was because I switched over there to the chat, and I'm still going to. I don't care. I mean, they see my the visual aids there for a little bit, but anyway, the Johnsters here. Big cadoose to Johnny on the Iron Show, and of course Rabbi Bugsy of the Return of Benjamin blogspot. I believe that's his blogspot, Brian. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But big cadoose to them guys, my dear brothers. I see that they were creating trouble over there on the social networking site. Of course, jumping into somebody else's thing about sin and the Ten Commandments and the whole 9 yards. So them knuckleheads never give up. But good things to discourse. Good things to talk about. You should be talking about those things and not talking about the Super Bowl or the World Series or whatever else is going on. I don't even know what sport there is right now. Maybe it's basketball or football. I don't know. I don't care. That's the farthest thing from my mind. But let's switch over here and let's show everybody what we're talking about. Usually, in times past, when I would flip up Stellarium, it would, of course, lock the whole thing out. Now, I always use Stellarium. You'll take note that Brian was using some other program the other day. The only reason why I use Stellarium is because that's what Brian has taught me to use. So I don't even look at anything else. Of course, everybody knows that I do use the Astro Viewer. I bought that, and me and Brian purchased that, I don't know, years ago now, but whenever it says that the star stood over, of course, the babe Jesus Christ, using that program, I am able to tell you what is directly standing over any geographical coordinates on this planet at any second of any day. So that is massively important, of course, to the bride. We need to be able to see any conflicts whenever they go on. I can target the Pacific Star and know which constellation that event was represented in. And me and Brian have done this hundreds of times. We'll go think. I think I remember one thing that we did. There was some explosion or earthquake somewhere, and I brought it up. And of course, there had been a gamma ray burst there right over that geographical location. So there was actually an instigating event in the heavens, and when it got here, it created either an earthquake or maybe a series of tornadoes that we looked at. I can't remember which, but of course, implementing and proving what David Roll mentioned the other night. They're the tablet 63 of the Babylonians that describe how they were able to track astronomical events to tornadoes and everything else. They knew that. David mentioned that the other day, that was one of the keys that he was able to insert into the new chronology, and it actually triggered that tumbler, so that key was correct, and of course exploded his timeline. He was able to track down specific events to specific days on our calendar as we know it. Of course, that would have been before the instigating event whenever we changed our calendar on the Feast of St. Francis. For more information on that, we did a broadcast on the Pope prophecy and time topsy-turvy. I suggest you check it out. We don't have time to cover that right now. But let's take a look at the Great River, as it's known by all peoples on this planet for different times. It's very important that we be able to show you exactly what we're talking about. That's what I'm going to do right now, and we'll push this to the limit. All right, you will see that here's the constellations. Now take note that I always mark out the equator and the ecliptic. Take note that during the 1,260 days, when we are corrected in our course, this will collapse and the two will become one. So literally speaking, Here, the Queen of the South. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there she is on after the great day of Hugh sits upon the throne. They were told about it in Revelation chapter 16 when he kicks us back in place. Right here, the red line, that is the ecliptic, that is the orbital path. It will rise up and be equal with our equator here. The two will be one. So she will rise up on the horizon. Okay, so from then on out, this will be her perspective on the horizon 360 days a year and 16 hours a day. She's going to rise up as our axis is corrected. So the Milky Way is, of course, our galaxy. Of course, here I am tripping up again. Whenever you get away from the city lights, this is what you see. You'll notice overhead there is a cloud that goes through the midst of the constellations. It begins, of course, at the feet of the rod of iron with which Christ will rule with. Of course, Castor and Pollux, Primus Numerus, and Primus Resurrexerit. It starts there. You see that it progresses over here. Keeps going, it's right through the tail. Of course, Ophiuchus's foot is upon it. And of course, you all know the references to Sagittarius. Here it is. And you'll take note. This is something you need to know about if you haven't heard me and Brian talk about it. This is where the interstellar wind was. Just take note. That for some very disturbing reason, the interstellar wind has navigated north of the equator, and its origin is now, of course, exactly right where the sun is now, Ophiuchus, just in case you hadn't remembered that. But here it is. It goes, and of course, it trails off, and it ends, of course, in that constellation which represents the Lord our God sitting upon his throne. That is that constellation there. Of course, right before then, it gets to the swan. And of course, the fox we've talked about. This sign was very important. Of course, here very recently, it was in the news when Benjamin Netanyahu mentioned the foxes there in Lamentations. He read that publicly. Of course, the eagle, the sign of the shields. Of course, Solomon's shields. So anyway, that's what it looks like. It looks like a cloud. And we have to understand some physics. And you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, what happened last night. And what happened on the Iron Show. Brian was not trying to prophesy. He had no intention. God didn't tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, Brian, you need to let everybody know that that attack was accomplished with an oath made to the leader of ISIS. He had no idea that was the case. He just said that was his gut feeling. And last night, when I just happened over to the Starburst Foundation website, I mean, I don't understand why me and Brian didn't catch that Dr. Purple had released a new article about the very thing that we're going to talk about right now. So we need to understand that these are charged particles is what it is. This is a dust cloud, what you're seeing. As this is the center. Let me put it this way. This is the equator to the galaxy, ladies and gentlemen. It's the equator from the galaxy. And I need to make a short reference to this. I can't go into great detail. I've spent so much time on it. Ophiuchus is the sign of the restrainer. What you know in the Bible, this is what God's talking about. That is this sign. You'll take note that at the exact opposite end of the heavens is the sign of the strike, Orion. Okay, so you'll take note. They are exactly opposite. It is from one end of the heavens to the other. So please take note of that. Well, it's rather quite disturbing. We don't understand why. There's no reason for me and Bry to guess why the interstellar wind has moved away from the center of the galaxy onto Ophiuchus's knee. But you also need to know about the pivot points in the heavens. They're very important. You'll see that we are right here This is the bride, the sign of the bride. It's also the sign of the Queen of the South. She's referred to as the Queen of the South because she lies below um, the ecliptic there and the equator. But on the other pivot point in the heavens, ladies and gentlemen, which, by the way, these are the points for which you'll take note that the blood moon jubilee occurred on, is, of course, our other representation, the sign of the fish, the 153 fish. So that's the two pivot points in the heavens. And I'm sorry I'm rambling on, but it's very important that I show you this cloud, this interstellar stellar cloud that is called the Milky Way. So Egypt, of course, we have absolute unequivocal proof that they called this the Great Nile. Of course, the Babylonians called it the Great Euphrates, and everybody knows that. You can literally go to the Smithsonian Institute and get get lost in the proof of this. But you'll take note that Andrew Collins has done a lot about the sign of Cygnus here. Of course, it is in a part a cross of sorts. I don't really have time to spend on that. But of course, the sign of the fox is in Lamentations, and we can go on and on and on. So you can see how important this is. But on the great day of He who sits upon the throne, you have to understand that the Lord our God is very clear to us. He doesn't joke with us. He literally comes out and tells us that He rides the clouds of Mount Paran. It is these verses, of course, and other verses just like it, that the Brian and I kept our eyes open for the proof from science. And we, of course, happenstancely kept looking, and we heard of this new theory about a superwave. When we looked into it, the Brian and I realized that's exactly what Dr. Paul LaViolette had proved in more ways than one. Now that he has his core samples from the ice sheets and everything else, we quite literally have the proof that that is the case. And now that the interstellar wind has changed her point of origin, ladies and gentlemen, He who sitteth upon the throne may very well be inbound. But you have to understand that physical things are going to happen. Okay, physical things are going to happen. I will mention this. You also have to understand that if this is the center, if this is the beginning, I just shared with you, the opposite end of the heavens is what? I'm not going to speak about this very much, but the Brian and I have talked very extensively about, of course, the sign of the strike and what it is in his hand. Of course, it is a lion's cub, and it's a club that he is going to that he has struck the lion's whelp upon the cheek. I'm not going to say anything more about that. So, a very interesting thing. The Brian and I haven't prepped to talk about what this means. So, I'm just going to bring my video back up. Brian, I hope that wasn't blurry or anything, but it's pretty important that we be able to discuss this now. So that you can understand something very physically is going to happen when the Lord our God comes riding the super wave. No one understand this. He has to travel through this distance of firmament. Now, quite obviously, and I've described this all to you many, many times, that he obviously carries a very positive charge. So when he comes through what you see there, the Milky Way, he's going to progress right through the center of it. That's going to have physical effects. It's going to have physical effects, and you need to understand this right now. The only reason why, the 3 stars are in Orion's belt are kept there, the reason why Cygnus is there, and he stays in his place. And the reason why, of course, Aquarius is there, another representation of Primus Numerus when he ascends. It will be he that will be pouring out the blessing upon us, of course, as we read in Isaiah chapter 26. But you have to understand that when he does that, all of the heavens will come unpinned. Because just like the sun, just like we are pinned to the sun is the center port of our gravity well. That is the center point of the spin and the torque of space-time inside the firmament. That's where the firmament receives its torque. It is that determines how strong our gravity is, how strong our magnetic field is. It keeps us in place. So you have to understand that the throne of the Lord your God in Mount Zion does the exact same thing. Now, he's going to have to show this to us physically. So when he leaves, and when he impacts with Mount Paran, of course, the effects are devastating. He sets everything back. That's why as soon as he impacts, we whip up to a 0-degree axis. Of course, even the sun, you need to understand that the sun is not on a 0-degree axis. It's off by 7 degrees. It gets locked into place. Of course, we know that the Lord is quite mad at the planet Mercury. The planet Mercury immediately goes back to her proper orbit, and it's no longer massively elliptical. Venus gets put back in her place, yada, 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 yada. So we have to talk about physically what happens to this cloud. And now that the linchpin has been pulled, literally all of the constellations, they receive all their energy, all of their gravity, all of their magnetic field. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in pain. I can feel the pain all the way up here as the tendon is drawing back like a rubber band. It really hurts. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let that throw the word of the living God into confusion. So as his power is pulled and relocated here, this dust cloud is going to break up. It literally has to break up. So physically, what we should see is the Milky Way cloud. For once, it will be dispersed. It will go away. But as he comes back through it, it is quite possible that he will create a magnet. And literally like a superconducting magnet. We all know, we all probably had elementary school test where you took iron little shavings and you put them on a piece of paper, and they would gather around a magnet underneath the paper or underneath the piece of glass. He's going to do the exact same thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, after this event, once the Lord our God is here while he's inbound, we're going to see it fade away. We're literally going to see that cloud disperse. But as he goes back through it, everything will be sucked into him just exactly like Jupiter's grand tack. You need to understand that NASA already proved that as Jupiter come inbound, it cleaned up all the debris. It sucked in all the dust particles, all the asteroid bits and fragments as it come inbound. And when it went back up, it did the same. When it went back up to its proper place, its proper altitude, when it achieved the height from which it had fallen, it also gathered up debris as it went. So you need to understand that that is the exact same thing that's going to happen. And of course, you can just imagine. Now you're able to understand a couple of things why you're not permitted to see the Lord your God. Literally, they say that it's a black hole at the center. And remember, as above, so below. So remember, I'm not trying to say that God is physically in a black hole or whatever else it is that they want to tell you or describe it. All I'm saying is that you're not permitted to see his place. and he has a physical place that must be mirrored as the heavens. So, literally, of course, you can find what is at the center of the Milky Way is that island that is Mount Zion. That is where his throne is, giving it geographical coordinates, of course. So now that I've explained this, I hope that Brian has had time to go over to Dr. Paul LaViollette's website and bring up this article so we can talk about a little bit more in depthly before we even get to the scripture. Okay, Brian, I want you to talk about what this article says and any. I don't know if Dr. Purple just reposted the article, but anything that he puts in there personally, we definitely need to cover that. But please give, of course, his website, or maybe you can even bring it up there. I can't remember. Brian probably said it yesterday, but it's starburstfound.com or something like that. But it's very important that you see how Brian and I do this. We're going to cover this before we ever look at the scripture, and I guarantee you're going to see exactly that told to you right out in the open. God's going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. He's going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. And when you read it, you're going to wonder after his marvels and after his faithfulness to actually give you this much information. It will also break your heart that people have rejected the Bible source code. It's going to break your heart. Whoa, I'm throbbing. Bry, please take us to Paul LaViollette's article and any other articles that you've stumbled across, please. And let's do this. I'm being stretched kind of thin here, literally.
All right, well, here we are over on Dr. LaViollette's website. This is starburstfoundation.org. If you go to latest news, you'll find this right up at the top. This was published November 7th of 2015. And on top of it, it states in here, paper finally published after 30-plus year journal battle ordeal. Yes, I mean, to explain that quickly, he has definitely had some, the academics, they do what they do. I don't need to really go into too many details about that. All right, but you can see here, we got a porous aggregate dust particle from 50,000-year-old ice measuring 65 microns on diagonal. Is this the correct paper, Matthew? Earth engulfed by superconducting interstellar dust particles during the last ice age.
That is exactamundo.
Okay. Just double checking. Let me make sure I got that. Okay. Samples retrieved from the Ice Age portion of the Camp Century Greenland ice core show evidence that a major cosmic dust incursion episode occurred 49,000 years ago, the largest to occur in the past several 100,000 years. Dr. Paul LaViolette, director of the Starburst Foundation, a New York-based research institute, has found that over a period of at least 6 years, interstellar dust was entering the Earth's atmosphere at up to 100,000 times that of the cosmic dust influx rate. He presents the discovery in a paper that is appearing in the December 1st issue of Advances in Space Research at science/article/PII/SO2731177506614. Once again, everybody, I will link this into the description at the bottom of the video once it's posted to the archives. Now, what is unusual is that the composition of this dust does not match any high their two known cosmic dust sources. For over half of the sample dust, weight consists of tin and lead. 49% tin and 8.4% lead. Laviolette finds that the heavy metal rich dust is most likely of interstellar origin, since its lead to tin ratio matches that seen in spectroscopic studies of the nearby interstellar medium and makes a very poor match to the lead tin ratio found in solar system dust and meteorites. Equally interesting is the mechanism that Laviolette has proposed to explain the concentration and conveyance of the dust to the solar system. Even in interstellar space, tin and lead are believed to be present in relatively low cosmic abundances, on the order of a few parts per million. So Laviolette needed to explain how these elements came to be preferentially concentrated by 100,000-fold. One day the thought occurred to him that tin in its metallic state is superconducting at temperatures typically found in interstellar space, and that superconductors are repelled by external magnetic fields through what is called the Meissner effect. A similar Meissner repulsion effect is used in levitating maglev trains. Let me stop there real quick, folks. We've talked many times here now, especially when we started bringing to light what is going on with the Keshe Foundation. What a maglev train is it's a train that essentially uses anti-gravity propulsion to float above the tracks. You can look this up out there, look up maglev technology. Many of these details that have come along through Keshe, where some certain things were proposed that his weapons had to do with varied military vessels being taken down. They've always mentioned that exact same word as maglev. And as we've stated in the programs that we did on Keshe, Laviolette has been working on and has patented a very similar technology quite some time ago, and he has another book out there on this. It's the technical details and everything down the line. So nonetheless, let us go forward. Actually, I'll stop here. He does have a link on the side of the page, and I will put my cursor right over it for Advanced Propulsion Electrogravitics. So go take a look at it. It's good stuff. All right, let's see here. Going back to where the maglev field was. Okay, let's see. Maglev trains, okay. He theorized that propagating interstellar shocks have embedded magnetic fields that would have tended to preferentially push the particles forward and in so doing call them out from all the other dust that was not superconducting. This same mechanism could also explain the high concentrations of lead found in the sample, since lead is another metal that is superconducting at interstellar temperatures. While the tin particles were found in their oxide form due to their long exposure to Earth's oxidizing environment, they would originally have been in their metallic state when present in the hydrogen-rich space environment. Laviolette found that during the course of the 49 years BP event that the concentration of terrestrial wind-blown dust present in Camp Century ice has decreased 33-fold, implying that the rate of ice accumulation had correspondingly increased 33-fold, perhaps reaching levels as high as 5 meters per year. This event occurred near the beginning of a climactic cooling episode known as Dansgaard Oskar Stadial number 13, and it was likely the cause of this global climactic cooling. This shows the cosmic dust influx into the solar system may play a key role in climate change. The high lead levels that were found in the tin-rich dust samples suggest that hazardous lead levels were present in snow and rain water that fell at that time. Lead was at over 10 times the maximum allowable threshold set by the U.S. EPA and could have posed a health hazard if such contaminated water had been consumed by wildlife or paleo-humans. Laviolette's scanning electron microscope results are also interesting. One tin oxide particle was found to have a length of 120. I'm not sure of how to say that word there, making it the largest monomineralic cosmic dust particle thus far reported. Also, particles were imaged that had porous aggregate morphology, some being embedded with numerous nanospheres similar to nanochondrules or GEMs found in cosmic dust particles. All right, Matthew, I'm not certain if you want any of the rest of this covered here. I'm going to take a breather here quick. Matthew?
Yes, I hear you were out of breath. Sorry, I was in the chat there for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you realize everything that this article proves, because it's getting ready to prove to you exactly what we're getting ready to read about in Revelation chapter 16. So you have to understand what he said was that the Lord your God has been here before. And when he did, he ladies and gentlemen, he dragged the interstellar cloud that you know as the Milky Way, that the Babylonians called the Great River Euphrates, that the Egyptians called the Great River Nile. He drug it here with him. Now, Dr. Paul went to great lengths to prove to you beyond any shadow of a doubt, especially with the 10 properties and the simple fact that in the interstellar firmament, it reaches absolute zero, minus 270 degrees, or 1 Kelvin. And underneath those properties, it achieved superconductivity. You have no idea the massive effects that would have had on this planet. You have no idea. Even the Carrington event would literally have been a hiccup. If any of you don't know what the Carrington event is, it is so far the largest EMP pulse that we've had from the sun. It caught the telegraph offices on fire. It literally bent railroad tracks. It was such a fantastic injection of supercharged particles from our sun. That was nothing compared to what Dr. Paul found there in the eye samples. And you'll take note that the one picture provided, the first thing I seen whenever I seen that picture of that particulate was a heart. It looked like a heart. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But ladies and gentlemen, now that we've covered this, now that we've seen what he's talking about, remember the progression of events that I said. That when the Lord your God leaves the throne room there in Mount Zion, that is the energy source for the interstellar stars. That is the source of energy for the constellations. That keeps them in their place. So you have to understand that they get their energy just like we get our energy from the seat of the sun. Now, what happens in the events after the 4 elementals are struck? Now you know why. Okay, now you know the reason why. The Lord your God has just left. He just left and took with him the Mosheim, the 144,000 that are 2 years and under. He took them. His presence here, and while he's here, he supercharges the bride so that she has a positive charge, physically speaking. He reorientates, I'm not going to go too far, but probably our DNA He's going to align its polarity, and we're going to achieve our hinds feet. That's what God is talking about. He's not trying to confuse you in the Bible when he tells you that you're going to walk in your high places. When you get your hinds feet, he's not lying to you. He's expecting you to know that he's saying it in such a way, using both the Hebrew Bible source code, comprised of the ones, and the Greco Bible source code, comprised of the zeros, to give you a binary code so that you'll be able to understand what he's talking about. This is why, of course, death and Hades flee from you. You cannot die if you're in the outer darkness. That's why he resorts, of course, to beheading those that have been sealed by the living God, the 144,000 Primus Resurrexit. Please look up that broadcast that Jose and I did. You'll be able to see that right there. It states it very plainly in Revelation chapter 7. It's encoded to you, but normally when you check your biblical mechanics, the calculators will not give you the royal count for the final sigma. It's 6, so it makes that calculation there for that word Achilleos there after it says 144,000. That thousands there, of course, reduces that number to its royal dimension, which is 194 less, because the final sigma is only 6. It's not 200. So that's where you get the encodation of what they are. Right there, that encodation is literally, it says 144, and then with Kilios using the final sigma, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's 666. So that's why they've been sealed. They cannot, you cannot be branded twice. They realize, of course, because they are the rest of her children. They are the rest of us that have chosen rebellion. Just like I was talking earlier about John Mark Gomez and Johnny debating about whether you had to keep the law. That's not the point. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go into a great big discourse. Johnny's not saying, and John Mark Gomez is not saying that you have to keep the law. What we're saying is that you can't purposely break the law. You can't use the blood of the Lord your God as a license for licentiousness. You can't do that. So we can't intentionally break the 10 Commandments and think that's okay. We can't intentionally violate the Beatitudes and think that's okay. We can't do that. So just know and understand that this time, that's why the book of Revelation says this twice, that now Primus Resurrexit holds to the law and to the testimony. It says that twice. So let's get to the scripture. Now that we have the basis for mechanically what's going to happen, I showed you the cloud. And of course, Dr. Paul LaViolette showed you the proof that he's been here before. And when he came, he brought this interstellar dust cloud, the Milky Way, with him. And it had terrible results, absolutely terrible results. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. I am not going to read because at present moment, for some reason, I'm having trouble focusing my eyes. I don't know when it was. I was at the hospital. As soon as I got home, my wife gave me ibuprofen. But I'm underneath an incredible amount of pain as I feel my cut tendon draw up. It's drawing up into my arm, and then I feel it drawing up between my fingers. So it's a great deal amount of pain, but I don't care. I am here to biblify the bride, so I cannot read for you. Brian is going to have to do that. So Brian, please bring up Revelation chapter 16, and I'm probably going to interrupt you several times as you're reading, and I'm sorry, I normally don't do that. Normally I would just read this myself so everybody can see what the Lord their God is trying to tell them. But like I said, Brian, I can't read. Everything's went fuzzy on me. But ladies and gentlemen, I would love to read God's word for you. I love to do that more than anything. It's just right now I can't. But make no mistakes about it. I will stay my course. To the left, I will not go, and nor to the right. We're not going to, in this broadcast, we're not going to flinch. The Bri and I aren't dead yet. We haven't gone home. We're right here with you. So, Bri, please take over. I will just flip to one of the visual aids on my part, and we'll just leave it at that. Maybe you can jump over and talk about that if needs be.
Well, that's interesting you're bringing that up. Yeah, because I did want to give one of our infamous plugs. Past listeners, you're full well aware of the fact that I definitely stand in agreement with a lot of the work that is done by this website right here. This is the thunderbolts.info. I had so happened to have the blog portion of it up. Nonetheless, get over here and get the cursor. As you can see on top of it, if you go to this page, there are several free documentaries. This one that I've got my cursor over right now, called The Electric Comet, I would definitely advise people watch that. Symbols of the Alien Sky is one that really gives you something to think about, and it's sort of can be a little shaking in its ramifications if indeed this is the way things happened. And then, of course, Thunderbolts of the Gods. Now, the reason that I stepped in quickly to give that a plug is Matthew and I we kind of go back and forth talking about varied things with astrophysics, and at times I look at things in this context, and I kind of use some simple way of breaking down how things work with like clock gears and bicycle wheels and electric motors that you make with bolts and plug a battery in and make them spin. I don't have training in astrophysics, but nonetheless, I can understand it full well through these concepts. And, the electric universe, it's still being called theoretical in most circles, albeit on a continual basis. There are reports that have been released over and over again where it's essentially the astrophysics in the academic communities are confirming everything that they say is indeed the case. And the reason I have been drawn to it lines up with what the Bible tells us. The system of how they understand the universe. You've got a combination of electrical fields. You get into plasma physics. There's it gets very complex, and that's why for those that want to know more, I would advise getting familiar with their material, because at times I think that when we're trying to talk about things like this, it's very hard for people to comprehend it without some kind of at least, brief introduction into this realm of understanding how the universe works. But I'm going to roll over here now to Revelation 16. I'm not altogether certain where you wanted me to start at, Matthew.
Let's start right after the four elementals. We went into that enough. And I've been stretched a little thin. So let's pick up right there with the fifth bowl. Let's do that.
Okay.
Right there in verse 10.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be in 16.
You are. You're in 16 right there.
Yeah,
Verse 10.
my
Verse 10. You're
my
going
program,
too far up.
No, I got it. It's right here.
Verse 10.
Yeah, if you're watching it through the stream, you got to realize there's a delay, Matthew.
Okay, I'll eventually figure that out, but I'm a little slow with this stuff, Bri.
Not a big deal. Then the fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became darkened. And they gnawed their tongues because of pain. And they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their plans and their sores, and they did not repent of their deeds. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way would be prepared for the kings from the east.
Now, right there, ladies and gentlemen, take note that it happens exactly like I described to you earlier. The fifth angel, he poured out his bowl onto the throne of the beast. When the Lord your God exits the throne room, you have to understand that even Michael, Gabriel, all the good guys, all of the host of heaven derive their power from his seat. Just like physically, we, the earth, derive our power from the seat of the sun. So right here, he's saying that the seat of his heavenly power has been vacated. It goes dark. It becomes weakened, and this creates an effect on the people that worship him, of course, because they have been sealed with his power. Okay, so you need to understand that. Let me try to use some celestiology on this. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think would happen to the moon if something was to happen to the core of the earth? You need to think about that. We talked yesterday, of course, about Uranus and Neptune swapping places, and one of them lost their crowns. Apura, the seven churches in Revelation representing the seven planets there. We know what happens when anything goes awry with our seat of physical power, of the source of everything that keeps us in our orbital path around the sun. So right there you have absolute proof that things get moved around, and the planets will lose their satellites. So you have to understand that once you take the seal, once you take the 666, the measure of a man, and anything happens to the seat of that power, it's going to affect all of his satellites, which unfortunately will be those that have taken the mark of the beast. Do you understand? So literally that's what he just told you. He just come out and told you that. Physically, next you're going to have to see that come true. You're going to have to see the physical effects of that. That's why the very next bowl says exactly what it says. It naturally says that the Milky Way is dried up. Now you know why. So the charged particles that Dr. Paul Laviolette presented to the world proof beyond any shadow of any shadow of a doubt that the Lord your God had been here before. He's going to bring the particles that have gathered there since that event. He's going to bring them with him. Now, how can he describe to the bride physically what's going to happen? How can he do that? How can he translate that information to you? Well, of course, we already talked about this. He does not say Euphrates. He does not say the proper name. He says it a different way. And now you have to take note that the Greek is very particular in its case and form. Now you have to understand that this is singular masculine form. It's a singular masculine form, but it's in the accusative case, ladies and gentlemen. So he did this on purpose. He did not use the proper name Euphrates for a reason. He was expecting you to know what he was talking about, because there, what he was talking about was, of course, the Milky Way, and it's amazing to me that people don't realize that God can do that. But when you take what he did here, the word he did use, and you break it down, it is, of course, from Eul, well or good. Okay, And I'm sorry, I don't want to forget, that's G2095. That is the word for that, the first part of that. And then phren is the midriff. That's literally what it means in Greek. The midriff. When it relates to the body, it is the mid portion, the mid running of the body. Right there, you'll take it as from the sternum down there, the breastplate, down to the bottom of the rib cage. And it also means the feelings or the sensitivity of our nature. So that's why he did that. He literally come out and told you literally what's physically going to happen. And the only way he can do that is by using this phraseology in the Greek and the Hebrew that he does. Ladies and gentlemen, he's bringing those particles. Let me show you one more time. Well, I can't do that. I turned off Stellarium. Sorry about that. But just please try to remember there in your mind how bright the Milky Way is. He's going to bring those charged particles with him, and not only when he does, when he exits through them, those that remain, he's going to reverse their polarity, and they're going to start fading away. They're going to, of course, lose their gravitational field. So they're going to start wandering away. So what's going to happen to that water? It's going to dissipate. How would you translate that to a human in the bridal procession? You would tell them that that cloud that they're seeing, the Milky Way, that river, it's dried up. There's not a cloud anymore. Okay? Now, so when that happens, now you're able to understand what's going on. Why, once it is that his throne has been struck, his heavenly power has been thrown into consternation, that's why it affects those who serve him in a rather catastrophic way. And just take note, ladies and gentlemen, it makes specific reference here, of course, to well, I don't want to say that. I don't want to get into that, but there is a reason why what's mentioned here is the exact opposite of what happened to Job. He got sores and all that, but no, he acted in direct contrast with how they're going to react. So just take note. He's given you massive amounts of details there of exactly what's going to happen. So you'll expect to see that when these things happen, even though you're in closed up, nice and secure, per Isaiah chapter 26, you're going to be nice and safe and sound there in the tabernacle of David. When you see the Milky Way dissipate, you're going to know what's happening on the in the outer darkness. You're going to know, have inside information as to what's going on outside of Avaris, outside of Goshen. So you're literally going to know exactly what's about to take place. So Brian, when the bride sees these things, we need to understand what's going on. So please continue reading with the next stanza there.
Give me one moment. I'm going to finish strolling through this. I wanted to bring up, I brought in Andrew Collins' page and strolled through quite a few things in there for people to see, but I brought this over quickly to the Cygnus and Giza alignments, because due to the fact that, one thing people do have to understand, and I'll try to, explain this even more thoroughly, is when you look at the way that the pyramids are lined up, and you've got the Milky Way running through, you've also got the river Euphrates on the ground that's lining up exactly with it. Now, when you bring in the combination of Robert Bauval's work, where he's done a great amount of work concerning the alignments with Orion, and then you couple that with Andrew's work here on the Cygnus alignment, it's fairly amazing. It gets you to really comprehend even deeper what Matthew's talking about. Now, the Cygnus alignment itself, I think, is very helpful with an understanding this, because when you realize that the Cygnus, which is the swan in the heavens, its alignment itself is directly above. It's basically at the top of what we refer to as the galactic center, and I usually call the galactic core of Sagittarius A. When you look at varied depictions throughout history, with archaeological finds, with ancient civilizations, many times you will see, this infamous world tree, and you'll have birds represented on top of it. There are so many cultures that use the same type of symbology. We have it within the Anglo-Saxons, which is the Norse Scandinavians as well, kind of tied into one another. And you have the same sort of representation just in a multitude of places worldwide, and even when we come into South America, and even, in North America, we've talked in depth in the past about the Decalogue Stone at Los Lunas, which has the Ten Commandments and 216 characters. And for those that caught the program from last night, we explained why that 216 is very important. But nonetheless, there is also engraved on one of those stones, there is that same tree that you're going to find in the Mayan civilizations that have the depiction of, from the story within the Popol Vuh, with the bird on top of it. I believe it's Seven Macaw. It's been a while since I went through all that. So what you're getting is that same representation. And when you look at this world tree, you're looking at the rift, which, let me bring up Matthew's page here, Skype here quickly. It seems just a touch blurry, but not too bad. I might want to hit the right thing. And he's bringing in he had it on the galactic core there, but yes, right in that spot. Now, if you take note of where, you see where we have Scorpio over there on the side, we've got it going right through the belt with Ophiuchus. And Sagittarius is exactly, where's Sagittarius in this? You want to pull that in real quick too? Okay, yep, see, we're dealing with Sagittarius right there, and Matthew's got the actual outlines of the constellation on, which is very important to see. If you took note of when I brought in the other Andrew Collins article, where he brings in the correlation of that very outline that Matthew has up right now in Sagittarius, ancient cultures also depicted that as a vulture. So we were talking about this the other night. There was a seal that was found that is dated back to Hezekiah. And, now you can see through the outline why it is that the ancient civilizations were depicting this as a vulture. And on the Göbekli Tepe stones, you have the scorpion on top of it right in the same pictures. So, I'm hoping I'm explaining that clearly enough so people can kind of grasp the whole, everybody, we all know that whole thing, as above, so below, they runs around in certain circles. Biblically speaking, as it is in heaven, so it shall be on earth, would be the proper way to also get people to understand exactly what we're saying. So I'm going to flip it back over to this webpage quick so I can go through the rest of it so people can at least see this article. I will be linking in all of these to the description at the bottom here for people to take a closer look. Andrew does some great work. He's someone I've spoken to here and there. He's a great guy. So, people check his work out, man. It's good stuff. I've had to reference it so many times that all the books I have here are practically, I need new copies because all the pages are bent in 15 different ways so that I can try to get to one. And then when I try to figure out what I'm going after, it's kind of a mistake because when every page in the book is folded over, there's a problem. But nonetheless, let me get back over here, and then we're going to get back into Revelation 16 here. But I'm just going to continue strolling through here. And as I said, I will include these links so that people can come in and look at these on their own. Matthew and I have both brought this up. We're hoping to have Andrew on here at some point in time. I know he's very busy, and I'm going to attempt to contact him sometime here in the future and try to give that a go. All right, let us get back over here into Revelation 16. And let me see, we had stopped there. Oops, wrong program. Sorry, folks. Okay. Now we had stopped, I believe, at, what was it,
13.
12. Yep, we stopped at 12, so we're into the next stanza.
Yep.
And I need to stop doing that. Okay. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. For they are the spirits of demons performing signs which go out to the kings of the whole world, and gather them together for the war of the great day of God the Almighty. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his clothes, so that he will not walk about naked, and men will not see his shame. And they gathered them together to the place which in Hebrew is called Armageddon, or Armageddon,
Well, you'll
which is
take
also
note,
Megiddo.
right? Which you'll take note, ladies and gentlemen, that exactly what I talked about before with the satellites of a planetary orbit. Now you're able to see why these 3 frogs are even mentioned. And just take note, the Lord your God was expecting you to know these things already. He was expecting you to, not waste your time in the entertainment industry. He expected you to actually acquire an education of physics, because those are actually just his physical laws. And that's what he uses to govern the safe zone of your environment. The temperature, the oxygen level, yada, 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 yada. So he's expecting you to know all these things, and that's why you get it right there. As the seat of their power has been pulled, you immediately see these 3 spirits that escape there. Just reckon that into your mind as a planet losing its moons. Very good way to represent it. Actually, the perfect way to represent that using the Greco-Bible source code. He knew exactly what he was doing there in the Greek. Brian, absolutely perfect what he does here. It's just, using the dative case there, the plural masculine, is absolutely perfect for him to use. It, of course, incorporates the final sigma. Just take note there that I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about those 3 frogs. But, ladies and gentlemen, they are massively important. So it's so very important that you were able to understand that. Now, everybody's probably wants me to at least include the singular time that exact case is used in the Greco-Bible source code. It is, of course, in the Exodus chapter 8 and verse 2. And if thou wilt not send them forth, behold, I afflict all thy boarders with frogs. Why did he say boarders? Ladies and gentlemen, he's expecting you to know about astrophysics and about an orbital path. He's expecting you to know that. He's expecting you to know the course of the faithful witness, your moon. He's expecting you to know that he's going to beforehand make sure that all of the interstellar bodies, they will be forced, they will be driven to name them in such a way that using history, using the myths of the past, you'll be able to understand. That's why, of course, Aquarius is named Aquarius. That's why Neptune has that name. That's why Venus has that name. So you'll be able to know and understand. But if you want to know the exact case and everything there for the use of frogs, that is it. And like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We need to hold the course with explaining what's going on here. So, Brian, just absolutely perfect what he said there and how he's translating it to us, so we'll know and understand exactly what's physically going on. Did you want to talk about? I know we have before. Did you want to talk about the place name mentioned here, Harmageddon? I wasn't going to spend any time with it. I'm just well, I can't even see my notes. I'm just I'm just talking off the top of my mind. So, Brian, we probably should talk a little bit about this phraseology here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dire warning to a specific group here. He tells them to keep their clothes. He's telling them to keep their clothes. There's only one way now they can keep their clothes, and that's to give their head. That's their only option. That's the only way for Primus Resurrexorate to enter into the kingdom. So here he warns them. Of course, you're supposed to understand about the robes, how this whole shindig started. This whole shindig started with the martyrs. They were crying out to the Lord our God, how long? Until you give us justice. And what are they given? They're given the clean white robes. That's why he says this. He puts this in an absolutely perfect way in the Greek. It's the only way to do it. And when you look at the Delitzsch New Testament, it is so beautiful. It will blind your eyes. It's just blinding. So, Bry, your discourse here on these four verses, absolutely action-packed here.
As I pointed out, I stopped in this is the King James Version translation I have here in the same program that Matthew standardly uses. Just quick, I just started using this program. I was a little late to the game. I should have been using this from the word go. Nonetheless, usually the other one that I do bring up, that's from the Olive Bible Study software, which is, I don't know, I kind of like it just for its clean interface, and it's very readable. Plus, you can get it on tablets, Mac, and everything else. So, your phone, all kinds of good stuff. So it's always handy to have that with me, especially when I get out and start doing things locally. And then next thing I know, some discussion, some questions asked me from out of nowhere, and when I'm dealing with that, I say, get your Bible, and 90% of the time they just look at me and I say, never mind, I will just get mine ready. And here, guess what? I'm going to show you the actual Greek and Hebrew words. So yes, it's handy for situations like that to be able to have it on a tablet or a phone or whatever you may. So, nonetheless, as I stated, we've got Megiddo here. There were some pretty famous Bibles that transpired. I cannot recall offhand. I'm just going to leave that open for a second. I'm going to check something here in the background. I wanted a new tab, not to close those. Oh well. I don't recall offhand. I don't like quoting this stuff improperly. It is a lot easier to have the proper spot. We had quite a few battles that had transpired here, and we had some battles between Egypt and Assyria. Yep, let me go in here. This is exactly what I wanted to bring in. This is during the time of Tutmos. We had an invasion. Yes, I can find the correct button. Sorry, folks, I'm a little out of it here. Multiple days, and we've done 3 videos back to back this weekend, so both of us are a little tired here at this point. But nonetheless, as you can see pointed out here, 15th century BC, fought between the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III and a large Canaanite coalition led by the rulers of Megiddo and Kadesh. Now that ties into another portion of the Battle of Kadesh. We have the Battle of Megiddo in 609 BC. It states here Pharaoh Necho III in the kingdom of Judah, in which King Hosea fell. Basically at the end of the day, there is a large amount of things that have taken place here, a great many important biblical battles. I'll have to go in at some point and recheck a few of these things as far as the new chronology works. Because I know that Ramses II was also involved in the major portion of the Battle of Kadesh, and if memory serves me correctly, I can't recall offhand if it was Ramses II that followed Tutmos, or where are we looking at here? Okay, Amenhotep, Hatshepsut. So, we can bring it here quick into the correct timeline and so forth. I'll have to look back into that again, and someday we can talk about that when I kind of am a little more with it, I guess. But we, brought that in here now. Um, let us move forward. Let me actually go back over to that program. And that's where we stopped, is at Harmageddo. And a cool little thing, I
Well,
can even pull up all the references
um,
and go ahead.
I just want to make sure that you mentioned the Battle of Megiddo in 1918. This was a
Mm,
war perpetuated by the Baha'i faith. Uh, Please take note. I do want to say this. I need to say this so you understand that the seat of that power is in a place you're not expecting it. You're probably expecting it to have something to do with Assad or something like that. No, the Universal House of Justice is in Haifa, Israel, ladies and gentlemen. So you need to understand what's going on there. It's very important that you look at that history, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you, Bry.
yep. And I just pulled up this article here for 1918. So, once again, this is just the standard Wikipedia. All depending, I tend to swap back and forth. Wikipedia can be a little bit tricky because unfortunately you will get people that put things in and then they don't give any source material. And I'm sort of the kind of person that if there's no source material, you at the end of the day have to take it with a grain of salt, or I have to spend hours on end trying to track down if indeed that is actually verifiable. So, nonetheless, it's good to get a brief idea of certain odds and ends, folks. But just make sure that you double check, before you start stating something as being absolute fact, that there's actual real sources needed. This is a perfect, for instance, right here that I'm over, highlighting clarification needed. So, and you got another one right here, citation needed. So once again, Wikipedia is great, but nonetheless, it's also people are allowed to edit it as well. So I am a little bit hesitant, when I use it on a regular basis. I just definitely, you have to spend tons of time looking into what they briefly bring into the article, because that's really at the end of the day where the quote unquote meat ends up being. So let us go back over and get back into the verses here in Revelation 16. And we stopped at verse 16. So let us scroll this up. All right, that's good right there. Now we go into verse 17. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl upon the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were flashes of lightning, and sounds, and peals of thunder, and there was a great earthquake, such as there had not been since man came to be upon the earth. So great an earthquake was it, and so mighty. The great city was split into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. Babylon the Great was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of his fierce wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found, and huge hailstones, about 100 pounds each, came down from heaven upon men. They blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, because its plague was extremely severe.
Sorry, Bri, to break off on you, but my dear wife has brought me ibuprofen and antibiotic. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I just got to the point that I thought, well, maybe I better do something. I need to biblicate. So please excuse me as I get a drink. Yes. Back to the Bible. Very important. Everything that was just said. Oh my goodness. Here we have. Oh my gosh. Boy. It is done. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll take note that here we get, of course, a great earthquake. The residual effects that's going to happen on the approach of the sign of the Son of Man. You have to realize here what's going on. They're being gathered for a reason physically. Just take note that we have heavy inbound at this time. Heavy inbound with the planet Jupiter as it makes its grand tack, as the Nice model is already taking effect by this point in time. Uranus and Neptune has swapped places. So physically, looking at this physically, it's magnificent here. Everything that's said with the approaching approaching planetary body. You'll take note that everything here referenced, you can get over there at the Thunderbolts website. Just watch some of those documentaries, and it's just literally off the charts for the Bri and I to sit there and watch one of those documentaries and realize that they're describing the seventh bowl. It's just absolutely amazing for us to look at here. The last documentary, little update I watched from Thunderbolts, they were getting some pretty awesome results back from testing that they were doing, and I was just sitting there shaking my head. These poor gentlemen have no idea that they're going to see these things come true. If the Lord decides not to tarry, we don't know with anything absolute certainty. We just the Bri and I, we just hope. We hope this shindig is underway. But ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you watch one of their documentaries, and before you do, or even better yet, keep the Bible open in your lap to Revelation chapter 16, verses 17 through 21. Because they will describe to you exactly what's going to happen. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand the dynamics of some things that are being talked about here. It's really off the charts whenever you get into, institution of higher learning, education. I, of course, took meteorology. I aced it. But you have to understand the dynamics that causes hail. Ladies and gentlemen, the dynamics at play to produce a hailstone of 100 pounds. Well, I'm sure that the boys over at the Thunderbolts Project, this is eventually going to occur to them, what's going to happen with the atmosphere as their theories uh, as their understanding of the mother cell, what happens in the top portion. And they're going to realize why they themselves call, the hellstones are ejected out of the mother cell and captured in the updraft of what they themselves call the daughter cell. It is this reciprocating action going back and forth with, well, satellites that produces a hail. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to realize that everybody else there in the classroom, they were studying meteorology for something else. I, of course, was studying the size of hailstones, what it took for them to reach the size which would grant to them a terminal velocity where they could escape the daughter cell, the daughter-mother cell reciprocation. You have to understand why I don't even know if I've talked about this with Dory, but you have to know the meter code in relation to hail signs. You'll see this whenever you see the news talk about the diameter of hail, a GR code being implemented. That's of course from a French word. So, ladies and gentlemen, the coding here for the Greco Bible source code is all over this. These I have studied in depthly the polarization of the properties. I've analyzed the classification algorithms, that is the difference between rain and hail. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that he just told you in massive detail exactly what the Thunderbolts project is documenting on a daily basis. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one way that the mother cell and the daughter cell could produce something 100 pounds. I mean, you have to get into the algorithms and realize that you've crossed a threshold there. 100 pounds is kind of large for the size to achieve terminal velocity. That would have to mean that something massive was keeping it aloft. And the Lord your God is expecting you to know this stuff. Now, I'm just sorry, but don't send me emails about, I don't have time. Don't insult my intelligence. I mean, how much time do you ladies spend on the social networking site posting puppy photos? Hey guys, how many hours have you thrown into Monday Night Football? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you that you don't have any more time for entertainment. You need to understand what God is telling you. He's not wasting his breath with Revelation chapter 16. He's not wasting his time. He's literally given you enough information right here so that inside the place that's been prepared for you, even though you're not in the outer darkness, you can be praying for the rest of her children. You know what's coming. You know exactly what's happening on the outside based upon your observations of what's going on overhead. You will also have direct access there to the Exodus angel as he protects you. Of course, me and Bri mentioned last week, God wasn't trying to confuse you with the order of the book of Revelation there when, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, he's expecting you to know what's going on. That's why the Holy Spirit has been given unto you so that you would know what is to come. Now, there was never any way that you could come to this knowledge by paying somebody else to give it to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you only pay somebody for entertainment. That's it. They're going to entertain you. They're going to just eternally present to you black swans. I suggest you check out the broadcast that Jose and I have did over there on the Bible source code. There we've done harpage, 2 of those, and I've already got the show notes ready to present to everybody what the real harpazo is. It actually means in the Greek to maul. You know what to maul means, right? When you are ripped by a wild animal, it will come in, whether it be a lion. Of course, the best representation of this is the lions of Savo. My son and I was just talking about this and how it relates to the sign of the strike. There, it's never never pictured there that lion in his arms never has mane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know and understand what maul means in the Greek, look up the lions of Savo. Those 2 male lions, the ghost and the darkness, as they called them in their own tongue, had no mane because the male lions of Savo have no mane. And there was something obviously going on in Savo. Okay? What those lions did, what they were able to accomplish, was completely unnatural under every stretch of the imagination. There was only one way they had to have supernaturally known where the ambush was waiting, and they would attack the other encampment. And this happened over and over and over and over and over again. So, ladies and gentlemen, there in Thessalonians, what these people present to you as a black swan, that's not the word harpazo. It's harpazomothea. That's what it is. You don't want the Lord your God to harpazo you. He's not going to snatch you and then rip you to shreds. He's not going to do that. See, that's what that means in the Greek. That's why your English word, it comes from to rape. That's what it means, to rape. But using the animal kingdom, that's why this word is used whenever it talks in the Old Testament, Greco Bible source code. It uses that word only in reference to mauling. Of course, the New Testament, they'll switch it up and they'll say ravening wolves. It means to maul. That's what harpazo means. It means to rape, to rip, to tear. So, ladies and gentlemen, you need to know about the black swans. That's the only thing that the entertainment industry is going to present to you as black swans. You need to get over there to the Thunderbolts Project and figure out what's going to physically happen, because God already told you about it thousands of years ago. Now, you'll take note that God must be so frustrated with the shepherds right now that he has to raise up the ungodly to do biblical research. I mean, why did he choose David Rowe? Why? Why? Why is he using the Thunderbolts Project? Why is he using Dr. Paul Laviolette? Why is he using Robert Bouval? Why is he using Robert Schoch? Why is he using Graham Hancock? What? Have I hurt your feelings? I'm sorry about that. I don't. It is not my intention to hurt your feelings, or to be so poignant, or to just leave up a pretty picture for you to look at while I'm talking to you directly. You need to stop entertaining yourself to death. You don't have any time for the stock market. You don't have any time for the Super Bowl. You don't have any time for the PETA Foundation. You don't have any time for nice little pretty pictures of puppies. You know, you are supposed to redeem the time. That excludes entertainment. So open your Bibles out, read it, and then start refocusing your eyes. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's very easy to improve your vision. Very simple thing you can do. All snipers do it. Stick your hand in front of your face and then focus on your hand and focus on what is beyond. Just sit there and flex your muscles of the eyes. You need to focus your eyes on the horizon. Forget about all these black swans that the bad shepherds are delivering to you once you've made your payment to them. Look beyond it. Focus on the horizon, on what is to come. And then start looking in the news. Start looking in science. Well, I don't understand what Revelation chapter 16 is talking about physically. I know God wants me to know something. And then go out there and go find it. Go to school if you have to. Take meteorology. Take astrophysics. You know, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask John Mark Gomez. I'll ask a rather pointed question. How much time have you spent on that BMX bicycle? How many hours? Now, the Lord your God created his footstool in exactly 144 hours. Tell me, John, how much time have you spent entertaining yourself going round and round and round with a sprocket on your bicycle? Am I saying you're sinning? No, of course not. I'm just asking you, how much time have you put into that? And how much time have you put into, I don't know, Ezekiel chapter 12? Let me pick on the youngest of us. Brandon, let me ask you, buddy. How much time have you spent watching Monday Night Football? What happened during the last Super Bowl? Let me ask you a strict question. Did you see the halftime show? I don't know which abomination did it this time. I don't even know who was playing, but I know all the bad shepherds will present to you this black swan right after the Super Bowl, because most churches, of course, on Super Bowl Sunday, they won't even have church. But I'm just wondering, did you watch the halftime presentation live? And yet, you had no idea that Dr. Paul Laviolette had been used by the Lord your God instead of all the big name prophecy experts to present to his children proof of what is to come. Ow, that hurt. But I don't flinch. Now, girls, I'm not going to do this to any of you. I don't have to. You know, I could ask Johnny. I could ask Johnny all about what he does, entertaining himself, being bored, being pathetically depressed as he's alone at the trailer at the end of the world. Instead of going to the library, checking out, I don't know, Strong's, and just doing simple Bible studies. Like, where's that word frog at in the scripture? I could go on, but I'm not going to. I could drill Bry right now. Brian spends plenty of time in entertainment. I spend way too much time in entertainment. Sometimes I need to rest and relax, and I like watching, science fiction flicks. I mean, I hate cops and robbers. If it's anything that depicts reality, I hate it. But, superhero flicks, love them. Just the other night, I needed to relax my mind, so I told Bri I watched the Avengers again. So I love to watch anything that's science fiction. I've the new in this Jupiter Ascending. I watched it. I watched all the superhero flicks. Um, I'm gonna pay for it, ain't I? I mean, I got no sense to play with you. I sure ain't gonna lie when I get in his face, because I will get in his face. He will have his reckoning day at the Bema seat with me. And I'm going to have to explain. He's going to ask me, well, Matthew, why didn't you make up those show notes earlier about the Harpazo primer? Why wasn't that done, a month ago? What about those timelines? Why didn't you get all that stuff done? What were you doing? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to tell him. I was being an idiot. What do you want me to say? And he's going to say, well, you realize that in that course of time, you could have saved Robert Schock. Who else have I in the bridal procession that is qualified to talk on a technical level with Robert Schock? And I'm going to have to give an answer just like Job. He's going to say, gird up your loins, Matthew. I'm going to ask you, and you will answer me. And what am I going to say? It's these things that I, thought about this, Well, you think he's going to let this use an excuse? Really? You couldn't biblify my bride to make sure they were prepared, to make sure they were up to speed before they would be tempted, so that they would be able to remember my wonders. Your excuse is that you hurt your finger. Well, you didn't have to do anything, Matthew. You didn't have to. I mean, I'm not lifting any weight. I don't have to wear tux. I mean, obviously can't wear my sweatshirt, so I grabbed this. I can unbutton the collar. I'm not writing anything. But what about the time I spent watching, The Man of Steel? You think that Brian and I don't know what he has stated about us specifically? You don't think that we know that we're not going to be judged more harshly? I know what's coming. I also understand psychology. I aced it. Ace psychology. I aced anatomy. I realized that because I spend my time working in taking a breath, I'm a soft machine. I must relax. Sometimes I must exhale. So I realize my need to take a break sometimes, but I'm going to pay for it. Do I have enough time to bear all the fruit that belongs upon my tree? Let me ask you this. Let me ask Johnny. Me and Johnny talked about this one time a long time ago. Johnny's tree is so big, and God requires Johnny to bear so much fruit. You don't think I know I got the short end of that stick, Johnny? You know how big my tree is? I mean, today, and I forgot to mention this, I put it in the chat, but we've got 4 different private groups in Korea that are under distress. 4 different places I received prayer requests from 4 different locations today in Korea. Stop entertaining yourself to death. Pick up the Bible. Know in your heart what its source code is and believe it. It's not required of you to understand it. Never was. If you have the understanding of a child, you can enter into the kingdom of heaven. But you need to at least know what it says so you can believe it. And then keep your eyes open. You know, it's pretty amazing. I always keep my eyes open for peacocks. Why don't you do this? Do a news search, because here as of late, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, it came out on the news that all the American zoos were getting rid of their peacocks. And nobody knows why. Look it up. Zoos losing peacocks. News article Brian just sent me a little while ago. Strange things happening. This is absolutely off the charts. Did you guys know this? Priest dies after monkeys drops bricks on his head. Is that the reason why the test broadcast that, you know, we named it Monkeys, people was looking for this and they found that broadcast? We didn't even know it? I don't know. I know the Lord my God is faithful. And I know that he can use idiots like me to accomplish his task even when I am unawares of it. God is good. God is good. And he is faithful to you. And he loves you. He even sent you his one and only begotten Son to sacrifice his blood. So that it might be substituted for your tainted blood. So easy. How easy is it to enter the kingdom of heaven? How easy is it to cry out to the Lord your God? Doesn't matter where you're at. Doesn't matter what time it is. You can reach out to the Lord your God. Believe that God did raise him from the dead. So very easy. Bri?
Yes.
I guess it's a pretty good place to end this, unless you wanted to discuss more about that last stanza, because all the things you know about the Thunderbolts project, oh my gosh, they have described the things that, well, it says right there.
Well, yes, and I mean, there was even, I'll go back over to that program. Yeah, I'm trying to get some issues fixed with my other program here. And that was actually in a different direction. Nonetheless, yeah, there were some things that I did. I mean, people within the concepts of, in the mechanics of how the universe works, that was where lightning divides the bands of time. That's where the original name came from, and it was all through encodation in the Bible. I won't go too detail, but the alphanumerics for every single word was the same in that name. And that's just it. Matthew was pointing out thunders and lightnings, great earthquake. Okay, there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And especially when you have this great hail, you have plague, you have every island is fleeing away, and the mountains were not found. This is a fairly huge cosmic event. I'm just having a time here of trying to explain it. I mean, you're dealing with, and as Matthew's been pointing out over and over and over again here, when we go back up even earlier from verse 10 on, this is what you're dealing with.
Well, let's describe exactly what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back to Matthew 24. The duo verses at the end. Verse 29. But immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Verse 30. Let's get to the crux of it. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. Any questions? Now, where's the other time he mentions this, of course? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Luke chapter 11, verse 30. For just as Jonah became a sign to the Ninevites, so the Son of Man will be to this generation. The Queen of the South will rise up with the men of this generation at the judgment and condemn them, because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And behold, something greater than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh will stand up with this generation at the judgment and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And behold, something greater than Jonah is here. Did you catch everything he said? Because I did. Why did he mention the ends of the earth, Bri? I wonder what that says in the Bible source code. I bet there's something there. Oh, nobody caught that? That she came from the ends of the earth. It's, ladies and gentlemen, he's giving you a whole lot more information there than you choose to accept. Because it's this kind of stuff you don't want to know about. You can't wait for Superman versus Batman to come out. You can't wait to see exactly what Wonder Woman's up to. Right? I'm telling you, right here in the verses I just read to you, his wonders are displayed for you evidently, emphatically, in plain sight. In plain sight. I mean, I know we're just getting to these verses now, but I showed you what he meant with the difference between now, as the equator and the ecliptic is separate, as to what's going to happen when they come crashing together. The Queen of the South will rise up. You were able to see it. will rise up to the ecliptic, because the ecliptic is going to be in the same exact spot as the equator, because you're going to be on a 0-degree axis. The Brian and I even showed to you those grid coordinates. Here, take a look, because God's going to ask you why you didn't know what was coming. Right there it is. I mean, why is it that Brian displayed on the last episode how all of this is encoded mathematically, how it makes perfect amount of sense, and Brian, the screen capture that you were giving to us the other day, was that from one of the good shepherds, or was that from a secular source? I mean,
Do you really want me to answer that?
yeah, I do. I want you to answer it.
Man, oh man. I only use secular sources, everybody. I'm just going to leave it there. You don't want me to go into this much deeper. I have my reasons.
Wow. Wow. I hate to tell you, it was no circular sources that told me there were 432 degrees in the circle of the Earth. Sorry. No. I wouldn't have even thought about consulting a secular resource. Why would I? I mean, I knew these things when I was 17. Boy, I've wasted a whole lot of time and entertainment since I was 17, Bri. God have mercy. Well, I probably need to get myself some rest. So, ladies and gentlemen, my closing thoughts are this. Until next time, God bless and Godspeed. And I strongly suggest that you take note of whatever it is that Brian's going to end this broadcast with. Because he's not going to waste his breath. Because his breath is at the expense of the Lord his God. So heads up, just so you know, heads up. Bri?
Well, I thought it was rather interesting that you had stopped where you did. The Queen of the South, Nineveh. Recall where we started this program? ISIS, who is stationed in the Nineveh government, which is Mosul. Look it up, folks, right there in broad daylight. You can even get it right from the Wikipedia. Attacked the governor of Yemen. Yeah, as of yesterday, two very specific and important places that we are told to watch just wandered into the news. Now, I don't know what folks out there are looking at. I don't know what they're watching. Matthew brought up that question just a few seconds ago. I don't look at what these other shepherds are putting out. 90% of the time, if I waste my time looking at it, it pisses me off. I'm sorry. If you don't like what I've got to say, oh well. I spend my time looking at what the Bible says. I don't have time for their nonsense. I don't have time for their shenanigans. I don't have time for 50 billion reports from all these supposed watchmen that spent hours writing up articles about what happened at the Super Bowl show. All right, folks. We have very real, very major events that are transpiring as we speak throughout the world. You need to get your focus on what matters. If you cannot see what is happening that is important, I cannot help you. I can attempt to help you, and that's all I can do. Everybody, you need to get in the Word. You need to read it for yourself. You need to block out all this excess nonsense that's being taught out there, you need to sit down and read it for what it says. You do that, you'll be in the position where Matthew and I are. We've had listeners of ours that have brought many things to our attention, and we've learned some very incredible things from them. I'd like to see a larger portion and a continued growth in that number. Don't take our word for any of this. It doesn't do anybody any good if you're running around and repeating the things that we're saying if you don't understand them, let alone nor can you show people so that they understand. What at least I desire most is that people get into the Word. They start getting into the original languages. Matthew has provided on the Bible Source Code website how you can even set up the program that the two of us have been using to get in and pull up the Greek and Hebrew, be able to search through the original languages in both the Bible Source Codes. That's the work that people need to be doing. You need to turn off this nonsense. You know, anybody that's talking about these terminologies with the quote-unquote Antichrist, and then they're putting their favorite little puppet leader in the place of that position. This goes for days. You start coming across these things. When you start coming across things that are contradicting what the Word says, you need to get up and push the stop button and walk away. I've said what I need to say. So folks, get into the Word, keep an eye on the things that are going on, recognize them for what they are. We have listeners that are all throughout the world. The ones that are outside of America, the people here in America, you cannot even fathom what it is that they are having to endure at this point in time. Spend your time on something that is worthwhile, something that will produce fruit. With that said, I'm going to close this out. Thanks everybody for joining us. God bless.